Yeah, what up? Welcome in. It is the Nail in the Coffin podcast. I'm your host, Drayson Ball. On today's show, the top 5 NFL storylines, according to me, going into the 2018 NFL season. We are just 1 week away from kickoff. And also my NFC South predictions. It's all on today's show, coming up on the Nail in the Coffin podcast. And jumping right into things with the top 5 storylines, according to me, heading into the NFL season. We are a week away, just less than a week away, actually, as today is Friday. And the season kicks off next Thursday. It is here. It is upon us. We've seen week 4 of the preseason come and go, and now we are just 1 week away from the NFL season opening day. I can't wait. I'm excited. I am pumped up. It's the best time of year. Baseball is getting hot and heavy. We are right around the corner from October and playoff baseball. The NFL is starting next week, and not too long from now, we'll be talking about NBA preseason. We are about a month away or so from that. We're just about into the thick of things in this last part of 2018. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into the top 5 storylines, according to me, for the upcoming NFL season. Number 5, how will John Gruden work in Oakland? Longtime ESPN color commentator John Gruden accepted a job to be the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, if you didn't know or have been living under a rock for the last 4 or 5 months. I'm really curious to see how this will play out. You know, he's a great NFL personality. He's a great sports personality, and he was tremendous on Monday Night Football. And I liked him on Monday Night Football. And when he signed his 10-year, $100 million contract it was exciting because we had never really, at least as far as my knowledge, we've never really seen kind of a situation like this where a coach is a coach in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, and then goes away for 10 years and then comes back and coaches. We have seen other coaches, have TV stints for, a year or two briefly, but nothing quite this long. He's been out of the league for 10 years, and it's a different league. It's obviously been said a lot that 10 years out of any job really is going to be hard to get used to. I mean, imagine if you were like a tech salesman, right? Say you worked for like a Verizon Wireless or like an Apple back in 2008, right? So you work at Apple back in 2008. The first iPhone has just come out, right? And then you take a break from tech. You're still around tech, like you still have a smartphone, you own one, and like you are familiar with the tech industry, right? But you're not like in a salesman, or you're not like a manager position at like a retail store. You're not like some sort of like a developer. That might be a better analogy. Like you're a developer for the first iPhone, and then you take 10 years off. You still have an iPhone, right? But you're not working on the development side of things. And then you come back 10 years later, it's going to be different. Just the technology industry alone is really advanced in the last 10 years, and so is football. So has the NFL. It's a different league than it was 10 years ago. So I'm really interested to see how he will pan out in his first season. Also, he hasn't spoken to Khalil, well, according to reports at least, he hasn't spoken to Khalil Mack, which is bizarre. You have an all-pro, an all-pro player on your defense, and you've not spoken to him. According to reports, I don't believe the reports that they haven't spoken, but Khalil Mack is still holding out as he has not reached an agreement on a new deal. And that's maybe just the way the league is heading now. Like, defenses are becoming almost obsolete, and it's all about the offense. So that's a really big, interesting storyline. How long will Khalil Mack hold out? Or will they trade him? I don't know. Number 5 is how will John Gruden work in Oakland this season? At number 4, which rookie quarterback will shine the most? Obviously, it was a touted quarterback class, especially in the first round of the draft. It's going to be really interesting just to see which quarterback will perform the best, not only in their rookie year, but in their second year, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Who will be the best this year and going forward? And it might be different. The best quarterback this year might not be the best quarterback in 5 years, or in 10 years, or in 15 years. My prediction, I've said this before on this podcast, I really like Sam Darnold. I really, really like Sam Darnold. I think he was the best prospect coming out of college, and I think he will have the best career. I think he will have a 12 to 15, maybe longer NFL career, and I think he will be at one point the best quarterback in the league. That's my prediction. That's what I believe. A lot of people are high on Baker Mayfield, and I just don't see it. I've mentioned it before. I just don't see it. I think he will. I think he can be okay if he's surrounded by enough talent, but I don't know how well he will actually do in this league. Also, he doesn't have the size of your traditional quarterback. Now, I know you'll say, yeah, but Drew Brees, yeah, but Russell Wilson, yeah, Case Keenum. First of all, if you're bringing up Case Keenum as a comp for Baker Mayfield, you're probably right on the money. But he's not Russell Wilson. He's not near as athletic as Russell Wilson. And I don't think he's as good as Drew Brees. I don't think he's as good as Drew Brees. My dark horse is Josh Allen. And that's probably an easy pick, but I think really the dark horse pick was between two quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Obviously, those are kind of the lower of the, they're 4 and 5 out of the top 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. So that's not really that big of a dark horse or a stretch. But I do think he will have a better career than people are giving him credit for. He's got a rocket for an arm, and I think once he gets a few years under his belt, I think he will perform better. I like Josh Rosen. I think he's the most ready to play right now, and I think he'll have a good career. Lamar Jackson, I don't know. Can he become Michael Vick 2.0? I don't know. I don't see it. I think he will be a bust. I do. At number 3 of my top 5 storylines heading into the NFL season is the whole New England Patriots, Brady, Belichick, Robert Kraft, that whole debacle that we saw last season. Has it finally reached its breaking point? Is the Patriots 18-year dynasty finally coming to an end? Are we seeing it? Will we see it this season? I think so. I honestly do. Last season was a roller coaster in many aspects for the Patriots. Obviously they were dominant throughout the season. I don't know if dominant's the right word, but they were good throughout the season. They were their normal New England Patriots self. They got a fortunate call against the Steelers, and they made it back to the Super Bowl, and then got trounced in the Super Bowl. The Malcolm Butler thing, that I feel like that still looms large in that locker room. I feel like a lot of people still blame Bill Belichick for the Super Bowl loss due to the benching of Malcolm Butler. Don't overplay it. I think it's a big deal. I think it still plays in the locker room. And I think that Tom Brady has kind of decided to go his own way instead of being Bill Belichick's rah-rah man in the locker room. I think it's a really interesting storyline this season. I really do. Also something that people were talking about a lot last season, I've rarely heard it this season. What are we going to get from Tom Brady this season? What are we going to get from Tom Brady? I mean, last year it was one of the main talking points when talking about the New England Patriots is what would we get from Tom Brady in year 40 of his age, in his age 40 season. But we haven't heard a lot, at least I haven't heard a lot in the talk radio that I listen to, that what will we get from Tom Brady in his 41st year of age? You know what I mean? I do think it's a storyline. Obviously he can't continue to play at the highest level like this forever. And I think at some point he will regress to the mean, and obviously his career will come to an end. And we're obviously sooner to that than we are. That is obviously sooner than later. So how much will we get from him this year? I think it's a really, really interesting dynamic. At number 2, Odell Beckham Jr. And I just wrote big money, big game with a question mark. I mean, he just got paid, and he deserved to get paid. An enormous contract that he got, $19 million a year, I believe. And he deserves it, I think. I think he deserves it. But now that he's gotten paid, will he become complacent? That's my biggest concern. I've loved Odell Beckham Jr. I love his talent, and I think he's a tremendous wide receiver. I think he's one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league. And you can debate the order, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones. You can debate the order. But the concern that I do have with Odell Beckham is I think he likes what football brings him more than I think he likes football. And that's my concern with him. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's tremendous for the league. He's a great talent. He's a great show. He's must-watch TV on Sundays. But can he be consistent? Can he be consistently one of the best 3 receivers in the league? Now, he's had an awesome career up to this point. Obviously, he was injured last season. But can he bounce back from that injury and become a top 3 wide receiver consistently in the league? We know he has the talent to. But does he have the drive and desire to become that? And I think that's really interesting. Really, really interesting. And at number 1, kind of an obvious choice here, I think, at least in my opinion. Can the Eagles repeat as Super Bowl champions? It's got to be a weird feeling for Nick Foles. He's the MVP of the Super Bowl, and now he's going to be like a backup to Carson Wentz. Speaking of Carson Wentz, it's got to be a weird feeling for Carson Wentz too. I mean, he was going to be the MVP of the league last season until he got injured. He was. Don't kid yourself. He was the MVP of the league last season until he got injured. And for him, he has to feel, I don't know what the right word is, but maybe a little bit of jealousy, maybe, or he might just, I don't know that he feels like that Super Bowl really belongs to him. He obviously was the reason they were the team they were, but Nick Foles is the one that got him to the Super Bowl, and Nick Foles was the one that won the Super Bowl, and Nick Foles was the MVP. So for Carson Wentz, it might be, a little bit of a kind of redemption season almost, saying that, hey, I got us here, and I can get us back there. You know what I mean? And I think that might be an interesting factor going into this season. The Eagles have been talking a lot of trash this offseason, a lot of trash, and it's really hard to repeat. Let's not forget that no one's repeated Super Bowl champions for like 15, 16, 17 years since the Patriots did it in the early 2000s. There's a reason why it's really difficult. And I think the Eagles just think they're going to walk back into the Super Bowl. And I don't think it will be as easy as they think it is. Obviously their first place schedule is going to be tougher than their schedule last season. And I just don't know if they're ready to commit like they were last season. I just think they'll take a step back. So those are my top 5 storylines, according to me, heading into the NFL season. Just to recap, number 5, how will John Gruden work in Oakland? At number 4, which rookie quarterback will shine the most? Number 3, will the Brady-Belichick relationship finally reach its breaking point? Number 2, OBJ, big money, big game. And number 1, can the Eagles repeat as Super Bowl champions? Moving right along to my NFC South predictions. We only got 3 of these left. The NFC South, and then we have the AFC and NFC West, which I'll be doing next week. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel to not miss out on next week's AFC and NFC West predictions. But this week, the NFC South. And I have the Falcons winning the NFC South this season. I debated back and forth between the Falcons and the Saints for a long time. I really like both rosters. I really, really do. But I think the Falcons will ultimately win the NFC South this season. I think they're going to be 11-5, and they'll be third in the NFC playoff picture. I really like their roster, and I mentioned Julio Jones has been one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league over the last few seasons. He's been tremendous. I really think Matt Ryan, don't forget Matt Ryan was an MVP of the league just 2 years ago. Now, they had a little bit of a down year last year, but they did lose to the Patriots in the Super Bowl in one of the hardest fashions you could imagine. I think that played a big role into their downfall of a season last year. But I think they'll be better. I really like their roster. I think they're great offensively, and I think they will bounce back this season and win the division. You know, their schedule is one of the easier ones in the division, if not the easiest. You know, they do have some tough stretches. Don't get me wrong. The first 3 weeks are probably the toughest. They begin the season on the road at the Eagles, but then they come home and host the Panthers and the Saints at home to begin the season. So they're gonna get a couple of testers early on, and you know, I think they're ready for it. I think they're a veteran team that knows what it takes to win, and I think those early 3 games, you know, I think they could go 2-1 to begin the season, and if they go 2-1, it would be a tremendous start for them. After that, after their bye week, which is in week 8, there are a lot of winnable games. A lot of winnable games. They do have more road games than home games. After their bye week, it's crazy. They have 5 of their 8 home games in the first 7 weeks. So it's really an interesting schedule. But a lot of the road games in the second half of the season are winnable games. You know, at the Redskins, at the Browns, at the Buccaneers. You know, their home games are home versus the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Cardinals. Now, they do face a couple of testers on the road. I mentioned the Eagles. They also play the Steelers in Week 5 and the Packers in Week 14. So they do get a few testers on the road. But I do like their schedule in the second half of the season. I think they go 11-5. I think they win the division, and I think they place third in the NFC playoff picture. Circle that Week 14 matchup on your calendars against the Packers, because I have the Packers in second place in the NFC playoff picture. Winner of that game, in my opinion, will win the second place divisional spot, the second place playoff spot, excuse me. A close second in the division, I have the Saints. Like I said, I debated back and forth between the Saints and the Falcons to win the division, but I ultimately decided to put the Saints at second. They will be 10-6, and they'll secure a wild card spot. I think they will secure the first wild card spot, but I do think I don't know if they have enough to win the division, and here's why. I have them being 10-6. You know, and the best thing I like about the Saints is their backfield. They have Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. They just signed Shane Vereen as well not too long ago. I really do like their backfield. I think it's one of the best units in the NFL as far as depth goes. You know, they should have don't forget, they should have defeated the Vikings last season to go to the NFC Championship game. You know, it took the biggest bonehead play of the season last year to lose that game. So don't forget, they were really good last year, and they're going to be really good this year. Drew Brees can still play. He is getting up there in age, but he can still play in this league, and he's tremendous. He's one of the best. One of the best in the league, and one of the best to play. As far as our schedule goes, I like it, except for the last 3 weeks. And this is the biggest reason I decided to put them second instead of first. Their last 3 weeks, they go on the road, face the Panthers, and then they come home and face the Steelers and the Panthers again at home in their final 3 weeks of the season. It's really, really tough at that point of the year to face 3 very tough teams. At that point, at that point in the season, you're banged up. Maybe you're missing some key pieces, and to come home and expect to win even 2 out of 3 of those games would be a tremendous feat. And I think that will be the difference between who wins the division. They do play some of their. The other thing is they do play some of their tougher games at home though, which is a little bit different than the Falcons' schedule. They play the Rams, Eagles, and Steelers at home, like I mentioned. And the first part of their season is easier than the Falcons. They'll win a lot of games to begin the season. Their first 7 weeks are very winnable games. But after that, it does toughen up quite a bit, especially that last 3 weeks of the season. So 10-6 for the Saints, but they will secure a wild card spot. In third place in the division will be the Panthers at 9-7. I really like the Panthers too, but they're just not against this division. They're going to be 9-7. They'll be in the hunt. They could sneak into a playoff spot near the end of the season, but it's a very similar story with the Saints as far as their schedule goes, and I'll get to that in just a second. But first, I've never really been a big fan of Cam Newton, and I don't know why. I love his running ability. He's probably the best running quarterback we've ever seen in the league, and he's a monster. He's a football player for sure, but he just has never shown the ability to become a precision passer in this league, a precision thrower. So that's my biggest hang up with the Panthers. Cam's never had 2 winning seasons back to back, and they went 11-5 last season. And if that's any indicator, it might be a rough go for the Panthers. Now I do have them winning 9 games, so I do have them winning 2 winning seasons in a row. But that is an interesting statistic. They have a great roster as well, and that's what makes this division so tough. Their defensive front 7 is tremendous. It's probably the best in the league, if not the best in the league. But, it's really going to depend on their offense, in my opinion. If Cam can magically morph into something that he's yet to show us, they could make a run. Who knows? They could even win the division. But I feel like he's yet to prove that. And in this tough division, I do think they will struggle a bit. Getting back to the schedule, it's similar to the Saints, but it's harder. And here's why. They have the same quirky schedule at the final 3 weeks of the season as well. Again, home to the Saints, home to the Falcons, and then on the road to the Saints. But the difference is, instead of having the tough games at home, they have those same tough games on the road. I mentioned the Saints having their tough games at home, the Rams, Eagles, and Steelers. The Panthers face those tough games on the road. The Steelers, the Eagles, and the Redskins on the road. And I think that road game disparity will be the difference in the standings. Again, I only got these 3 teams separated by 2 games. 11-5 for the Falcons, 10-6 for the Saints, 9-7 for the Panthers. And it's purely based on the schedule disparities. I think the Falcons get a little bit easier schedule to end the season. I think the Saints get a break by having a lot of their tough games at home. And I think the Panthers have a little bit tougher schedule because they have to face those teams on the road. And that's the biggest difference I saw in the scheduling for the Carolina Panthers. I think that will be the difference. And finally, no surprise here, the Buccaneers in 4th place in the NFC South. I have them going 3-13. I don't think it will be a season to remember for the Buccaneers. They're obviously going to be out of the playoffs at 3-13. Jameis Winston's going to miss the first month of the season. And even with him on the field, he's not proven that he's a franchise quarterback. He's just not proven that. And I just don't think they'll have the roster to compete in one of the toughest divisions in football. I don't think that they will have enough in the tank to be able to make a run in this division, which is tough. The only bright side in their schedule is they do get a lot of their tough games at home. They face the Eagles, the Steelers, the Redskins, and the 49ers all at home. All at home. But as far as the rest of their schedule, it's tough early and it's tough late. Their first 3 games on the road at the Saints, home versus the Eagles and the Steelers, and then from, their final 9 games, from week 9 on. From week 9 on, at the Panthers, home to the Redskins, at the Giants, home to the Niners, the Panthers, the Saints, on the road to the Ravens, on the road to the Cowboys, home versus the Falcons. It's a tough schedule to end the season, and I just don't see them winning a lot of those games. I don't see them winning a lot of those games. I think they will struggle, especially with Jameis Winston as their quarterback, who, like I said, has not proven that he's a franchise quarterback, at least in my opinion. So there you have it. That's the NFC South. Those are my predictions. I'm sticking to them. The Falcons at 11-5, third in the NFC playoff picture. The Saints at 10-6, they will secure a wild card spot. The Panthers at 9-7, they will be in the hunt, and the Buccaneers will miss the playoffs at 3-13. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Nail in the Coffin podcast. Don't forget to like the video down below and subscribe to the channel to never miss out on a future upload. Next week, reminder, my final predictions for the NFL season, the AFC and NFC West. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you later.